It's time. We're all here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Um, and welcome to our esteemed audience. I'm really excited to be a part of this roundtable discussion. Hi, everyone. My name is Margaret Wallace, and I am the co-founder of Playmatics. I'm a game developer, and I've been working in the games and impact space for quite a few years. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about what we're here to discuss for this roundtable. STEM Your Game Challenge, Adapting Games for Education. And then we can dive right into the discussion, which is really what I'm excited about. And I think you will be too, to hear from these two talented companies. So the STEM Your Games Challenge was an initiative that was championed and led by Games for Change with support by Endless. And this competition was created to inspire game developers from all over the world to bring their talent and creativity to bear to the edtech community to help raise the quality of games that touch on STEM, science, technology, education, and math, and really just to kind of really increase the dialogue and the output around this space, combining games, which we know are probably one of the most pervasive forms of entertainment around, with impact-driven purpose around science and technology learning. And so the STEM Your Game Challenge, I was involved from the beginning, which was really awesome. We put a call out to developers and companies and teams from all over the world, and we had submissions from everywhere. And the judges went through a very rigorous process of reviewing the games. The games had to be either in beta or already in release and had to have an entertainment first focus. And we also looked at each team's proposal around how they would modify and adapt their game for STEM learning. And then the winners who are selected have about five months to implement those changes. And so it's my pleasure to be with the winning teams for this challenge, Red Star Interactive and Ludin. And it was a very competitive process. So it's no small feat that each team made it to this point. And so what I think would be really useful for this roundtable would be for Ludin and for Red Star to each talk about their game, who they are, and how they're implementing STEM learning objectives into their game and what it's been like so far. So with that in mind, would you like to kick this discussion off, Red Star Interactive, and tell us about your game, Get a Grip Chip, and what you've been doing to incorporate STEM learning objectives into the game?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And thank you, Margaret, for hosting us and Ludin today. And also thank you, G4C and Bliss, for putting together this challenge. It's been really fun. So I'm Vicky. I'm a director at Red Star Interactive. For Get a Grip Chip, I'm primarily responsible for the game and level design. And
I'm John. I'm also director at Red Start, and I was primarily responsible for programming, also working with our artists to get all these pieces working together.
Yeah. And so Red Star Interactive we're a small studio of about 6 people. We started up at the end of 2019, and our commercial game was Get a Grip Chip. So Get a Grip Chip is an action platformer, but the catch is you can't jump. So what takes place is you have a grapple hook on top of your head, and you've got to figure out how to navigate the world with just the grappling mechanic. It leads to like lots of high flying fun with like essentially an obstacle course of levels. You're in a factory, and you've got to climb your way back up to the top after your boss was hit in the head by a cog and ended up creating havoc, and you got sent to the bottom. And then so along the way, your friends, the battery bots, which you and your boss build together, they got scattered all throughout the factory, and you've got to collect them all. And so this ties into the 7-year game challenge for the announcement. It's Get a Grip chip and the body bugs. So
yeah, what we've been working on for this is to take Get a Grip chip and reset it to be inside the human body, hence the title. And yeah, what we wanted to do was to focus on the digestive system. So rather than navigating the floors of a factory, you're going from the beginning of the digestive system all the way through the end. And yeah, along the way, you'll traverse these major parts, the major organs of the digestive system. And you're also going to fend off 3 viruses that cause gastroenteritis. So yeah, it's been a great process so far. And we've got a couple of things to share, actually. I'm just going to share my screen for 1 moment. So just to give you a taste of some of the things we've been working on here, this was the original concept that we created for this reimagining of Get a Grip chip. And yeah, you can see we're trying to get some of the disgustingness of inside the human body. We thought that would be very appealing. And a couple examples here. So this is a screenshot from the game originally. And we've been going through the process of thinking of these new settings and new places for these levels to take place. So this is our level selector, our hub, the original game. And here is one of the concepts we've been working through for what this might look like when it takes place inside the body.
So I think from here, we'll take you into, this is the first one, the earlier levels on the first floor, but in the body, one of the early parts of the digestive system is the mouth. And so we've transformed the first level of the factory into the mouth. And here you'll have some teeth, and like food is literally going to be chewed in the background as you traverse and find the various objects related to like the mouth and that part of digestion in the body.
We also have a couple of these later levels from Get a Grip chip. This was the abandoned floor of the factory, and we've been working to transform that into the intestines. So you may recognize a couple things from this concept, maybe. But yeah, working through the process of sort of transforming the setting, integrating this STEM content
into the environment that you're in, so that you really are immersed in the human bodies.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've got a number of other details to share during the course of this talk, but maybe we'll take a little breather there and
pass it over to Ludin.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes. And we'll hear now from Ludin Interactive. And I can't wait for you to present what you've been working on, and then we can dig into the discussion.
Come on, go, Georgie.
Okay, there goes. So my name is Georgie, and joining me today is Margarita. I will tell you about you later a little bit with pictures. And we are from a independent game development studio called Luden.io. So I'm the marketing manager for the company, but also I'm writing some text, making some videos, and also working on projects like this one made possible by Games for Change and Endless. But in general, let me switch to sharing my screen. I think it's time. Oh no, I don't have the right. No, just in a few. I have the wrong slide turned on up there. So we are a small team of about 6 people, with some people occasionally joining us for other projects, and we have been. Is it on? Yes. And we have been making since 2015 what we like to call games that spark curiosity. So we believe that games are a very engaging thing, no doubt. And we believe that the best thing to teach something with games is to give the players something to play with, actually, and something maybe difficult for them to wrap their hands about, and maybe for them to become interested and then start pursuing their next goal of a lifetime. So one of the games that we have made previously is called Wild to Learn, and this is a puzzle game about a machine learning specialist who is working on a device to better understand his cat. And this is your normal puzzle game that you can find on Steam or wherever, but it has what we like to call an educational angle, because in this game you get to do what a machine learning specialist gets to do. You get to work on tasks, you get to understand how visual programming works, and in general, you get to wrap your head about the lifestyle of a machine learning specialist. And this was a puzzle game, but we decided to take this concept of machine learning a little one step further, and this is how we started working on Learning Factory, a game which also has machine learning, but it's a little bit about different kinds of things. It's about a scientist going to Mars to renovate, automate, and infinitely optimize a factory which makes and sells goods to cats. This is being done for science, of course, because that scientist wants to understand the nature of cats and why cats have become sentient all of a sudden and why it is on Mars. So that's part of the mystery. And which is why this engineer/scientist would need to create a whole factory for gathering data about cats and passing this data through machine learning models to understand it and to make conclusions and to find correlations and initially make a scientific breakthrough. But for that you would have to do some that's the next slide. But for that you would have to start low with renovating just one store, and then you will have to harvest resources, craft goods, supply goods to the store, work with different kinds of cats, and build actual machine learning models that are working in this game that will help you set help you set optimal prices for goods. So for our educational version, we have decided to take the part of this game which is about building stuff and optimizing stuff and solving problems. So for Learning Factory EDU, we have made a smaller, more dedicated version of our game. It consists of 10 separate lessons, and player is going through each of this lesson gradually, also starting small. I will show you some of these pictures later. But each lesson is dedicated to a problem that has to be solved with a engineering approach. So the players would have to set hypotheses, they would have to run experiments, they would have to calculate data, and they will have to understand where their solutions work or not. So each lesson is a separate problem, which starts from as small as repairing a transporter, and then sooner or later goes to more complicated things. Now, the most interesting part about it is that we didn't come up with this plan by ourselves, but we did what we do when we are trying to develop educational games. We approached actual educators and started asking them what would be the right way to do it. And then brings me to the start of this presentation, actually, because I'm going to present you the people who are working with us on this project. So there is Margarita. Will you take a second, give me a break and introduce yourself, because you're the only one present in the room?
You want me to introduce myself, right? Okay.
Yes, by all means.
Okay, so I'm ex-co-founder of Unihawk, Y Combinator alumni, and currently I'm working as a business development manager at Ludenio. So basically my job is to search for you teachers online in places like Play for Learning Alliance and bring you to collaborate with us on this beautiful and very smart project, Learning Factory. The microphone goes back to you, Georgie.
Yes. So we're actively looking for teachers who would play our game and give us feedback. But also we have some practicing educators on board, which you can see on the lower part of this slide. Those merry bunch of teachers, tech-savvy teachers, are called geek teachers. And they're doing their best in developing educational materials for this game. Because Learning Factory EDU comes as a package, which consists of the game, where there are 10 lessons. And also there is a teacher's guide, which suggests a scenario through which a teacher could conduct a class. And we were trying to touch the topics that are covered by next generation science standards, namely I would have to open another tab for this, MS ETS 1, which is precisely about science and engineering practice, setting problems, and taking data-driven solutions. So with keeping those standards in mind, teachers from Geek Teachers helped us to develop and still are helping us develop plans for our lessons. And the guys on the upper right corner of the screen are our party makers and podcast hosts, the community show, because they are helping us invite teachers to our podcast and talk to them, teachers who are already practicing game-based learning. And we're trying to talk with these teachers and make their stories heard, and talk about game-based learning in general, because this is something very new for us as well. So we're trying to sort of pick their brains, if it's the right expression to pick here in the process. And this is how we're making Learning Factory EDU. And also, since we're all gathered here, I would like to announce that there maybe is a link, or no, there will be a link in the chat, using which you can already access the first 5 lessons in the game, accompanied by teacher's guides. Well, you can actually access all 10 lessons in the game, but the other 5 are still in development. But the first 5 are for you to try as work in progress. Okay, I think that concludes my lengthy speech. Thank you very much. Back to you, Margaret.
Absolutely. And if we could please, thank you, Marissa, for sharing that link in the chat. So everyone check that out. And thank you to RedStart and Luden.io for that awesome introduction. And I'm going to ask just another general question, and then we can get more deep into the discussion. One thing I forgot to talk about with the STEM Your Game Challenge is that in addition to each company having its own resources, Games for Change is also providing subject matter expertise and other kinds of mentorship, and also trying to help expand opportunities for these awesome games to kind of get in the hands of teachers and students and play testers. So I wanted to kind of talk with each team, maybe starting again with RedStart. First of all, how long has your company been around? And this is for both of your teams. How long has your company been around? How did you find out about the STEM Your Game Challenge? And what about your game made you think that you wanted to adapt it for STEM learning purposes? And I mean, in terms of the mechanics or the characters, like what about it inspired you to even apply for this challenge? And I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah. So RedStart's been around since the end of 2019. So I think we're going up on about a year and a half. And sorry. And then, okay, so as for the STEM, we found out, I think, either through the IGDA chapter in New York City or through Playcrafter, also in New York City. It's just mostly the community of developers here.
Yeah, because we're relatively new on the scene. We're looking for any avenues to chat with people and get connected and find communities, especially local communities that we could
engage.
Yeah, and I think through the grapevine we heard about it. And yeah, I think, in terms of taking Get a Grip chip and turning it, applying the STEM content to it and sort of transforming the game here. Initially, I think we were focusing on the mechanics of the game. We thought that there was a very natural sort of progression in Get a Grip chip where you're traversing this factory. In the case of Get a Grip chip, going from the bottom to the top, we thought there was a natural thing there of going from the top to the bottom in terms of digestion. So for us, I think we think through things very visually, and that was something that we latched onto early on.
Yeah, one other aspect was like taking a commercial game. We were launching Get a Grip chip for commercial purposes, and the combination of both and human body, which is like with the human body moving up and down, we thought it'd be really interesting and just really fun for people to engage with different content like this.
And your game is just for the audience, just to kind of put it in a genre or a taxonomy, it's a grappling 2D platformer. Is that correct? And one thing that I noticed when experiencing the game is there are platformers which are really fun and satisfying to play, and then there are platformers which are not as fun and satisfying to play. But yours is really, it just feels good to play it. I feel it's extremely approachable and it's extremely engaging. So I think that's one of the many reasons that you as a team stood out.
Yeah, that was, originally when we were working on Get a Grip chip and coming up with the ideas for it, we had a large focus on accessibility. And I do think with platformers in particular, they tend to be extremely difficult and challenging. You end up doing sort of the same actions over and over. So we wanted to make something that was more approachable, more accessible, and appealing for all ages, basically.
And all like experiences with gaming. We wanted a game that even if you had never picked up a platformer before, you could pick this up and learn how to play and progress through the entire game. And that's actually crucial because the main mechanic and only mechanic grappling is relatively unusual as a singular mechanic. So it's really important to be able to teach that progression all the way throughout.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time fine-tuning the grappling mechanics so that it felt good. It was responsive, and then it was satisfying and sort of could carry you through the entire game. And I remember, especially early on, we spent a lot of time on the first couple of levels, essentially the tutorial levels, if you will, making sure that we could teach you these elements one at a time in a fun and engaging way. And I think that's actually something that's carried over, very nicely to this project, in that, we're going to want to be teaching this content. We want to sort of ease players into it, but do so in a way that is engaging and holding their attention and allowing them to sort of respond to things in a natural way.
That's awesome. And the same question to you, my esteemed colleagues at Luden.io. How did you find out about the STEM Your Game challenge? How long have you been around as a company? And what about it seemed appealing in terms of your game and adapting it for this purpose?
Well, we've been around since 2015, and just last year I was participating in the Games for Change Festival as well, when we were working on our project, which was an effort to make an virtual reality app for autistic learners. We've been following Games for Change for so much time now, and I don't remember exactly how we found the STEM Your Games challenge opportunity, because it was our CEO who applied to it. But I'm sure that whenever he saw it, he was instantly hooked, because that was I would be like, because it only felt very natural, because the game we were working on is about engineering, and it's about optimizing stuff, and it's about building a factory, automating it, and looking at data, making data-driven solutions. And hey, we thought E stands for engineering in STEM, so really, why not? And once we've started to looking into how we could fit into STEM and what STEM is typically looks like in American schools. I'm sure Margarita will tell more about how it looks like in American schools, because she has been talking to a lots of teachers recently. And while we started digging into it, it all just came into places. And now we're just trying to adapt it to make sure that this would be something that teachers would actually be able to use in their classrooms, and that it would facilitate their lives and not vice versa.
Absolutely. And, one of the many things I love about your game is the fact that that Learning Factory combines, an accessible game mechanic, but you put in this element of cats, and how cats can be extremely difficult to understand, and they can be very unpredictable. Some might say sometimes annoying, depending on if they're walking on your keyboard or what have you. So I just think it's how did you creatively come upon that kind of like mashup combination of some engineering learning with the chaotic nature of cats as characters? Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Well, cats are famous to be not knowing what they want, whether they want a door opened or not, whether they want to be inside the box or outside the box. And this seems like a very important set of questions to them. And we have been making, actually, our previous game was also about understanding cats, and Learning Factory is kind of a sequel to it, because in the end of Wild True Learn, with the best possible ending, players, humans and cats go to conquer Mars together, and Learning Factory starts on Mars, so apparently they've made it. And speaking on the cat theme overall, I think the idea behind that is for us trying to make our games fun in the first place, because what is not working with some educational products, not educational games, but what they call educational products, is that they're trying to, kind of combine some gamification or playful stuff with existing curriculum. While I think Vicky and John could agree with me that games, they just don't work when there is no fun. And our first goal and our main goal was always for the players to have fun. This is why we have this factory. This is why we have those cats. And you really, in the main Learning Factory game, with the Learning Factory EDU, we're kind of fitting it into, educational mindset. But with regular Learning Factory, you don't have to get it into that machine learning stuff at all if you don't want to, because that all works perfectly without knowing anything about machine learning. But if you want to go deeper, you can click a couple of buttons, and there would be some wiki articles, and there would be links to educational blogs and YouTube videos and stuff like that. So this is kind of, our funnel here. We want players to be having fun, and for those players who are having fun but also interested in the topic, there is a little gateway to more education.
That's great. And I wanted to mention to the audience that we'll have time at the end for questions and answers, and I'm definitely reading the active chat, so thank you for that as well. I really appreciate that. One of the things that you've all been doing just naturally and as part of this whole process is working with subject matter experts, talking with teachers, discovering sort of what contexts your games will be played in. Can you all please share more about what it's been like, that experience, and what you've learned from speaking with educators and teachers, and what it's like, incorporating the expertise from subject matter experts into your games and game design, and how do you balance that? Like, what's that been like for you all?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks. So it's been great, and like just want to say like thank you to Leah Hirsch and Sabrina Kaliba, who've been really great at like helping us with the science content, with the digestive system, and how to teach it, and how to integrate game design into Get a Grip Chip. So what's so great about this is that they're the people that have been on the ground with other teachers and students, and so they know what has worked and what has been great at educating the students, and which helps us reshape Get a Grip Chip to fit into the new context of the digestive system and inside the human body.
Yeah, and I think they also clearly have a great passion for this stuff. They've provided a ton of ideas, and they've really pushed us to expand the mechanics of our game to fit better into that setting, a classroom setting, and to really closely integrate the STEM content with the game mechanics that we have. I think, for our game in particular, one of the larger challenges we have is that one of the primary actions is sort of navigating this world, and so we've been working with them to find ways that we can get this STEM content really closely integrated with those mechanics, and really that means having us focus on these discovery mechanics and exploration, and having students really dive in to the human body, so to speak, and experience a lot of this stuff firsthand. I think a big part of also working with them was just coordinating, really, and making sure we're all on the same page and working towards the same goals. And I think setting up a solid structure with them, clear milestones, documents and things we can share that provide this sort of backbone where we can share ideas, we can pass notes back and forth, and really pick apart every aspect of the game.
That's awesome. And Margarita, you were going to say too?
Yes, of course. So basically, as we're pretty much far away from the United States, in Russia, as Georgia mentioned, we're working closely with teachers who are helping us to, construct the lessons. In terms of US teachers, as I mentioned again, like we're searching for people on the internet. And even though, like, bearing in mind that it's summertime, we're still able to find, interested folks, and people are excited when they hear about Games for Change collaboration. And they see it as an opportunity to show that they not only care about, student grades, but they also want to prepare them for life. And they don't mind to do that in an entertaining way. And besides, who does want to become an inspirational leader for the young generation? So as we're just, releasing initial lessons, there is still a lot to learn, but, some facts that we have discovered so far. So basically that pains and problems and in the United States and Russia intersect. Teachers don't have enough time, and that's why we are here, to save their time so they can focus instead of on preparations on teaching process itself. Plus, teachers have, some sort of freedom to a certain extent to choose what kind of material they can use in the educational process. And, just fun fact that, any person in the United States can open up a school. Maybe I should open one. Why not?
That's awesome. Are there any challenges? Are there specific challenges that you found around how you incorporate educational content or curricula into a game that you like? Can you provide examples? Because I see a lot of comments in the chat around chocolate covered broccoli. We also touched on
Chocoholic here.
Oh. Yep, I can relate.
Yeah.
I've also seen discussions around, we've all seen attempts around gamification of educational content, and sometimes that does not feel inspiring for the students or for the teachers or for the anyone else really. So have you encountered any challenges or challenges that you maybe overcome in terms of incorporating educational content? I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say definitely, right? It's always sort of a difficult problem to find the right balance of these things, right? You want players to be focused and thinking critically about the content. At the same time, you want them to be having fun and being able to get into a flow state. Right? You want them to sort of not be sort of actively worrying about what buttons to press, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think one of the big challenges we have is finding the right balance there. And one of the things we wanted to make sure we kept in the game is that flow. Right? We wanted people to be able to navigate freely. We wanted them to be able to have fun with the physical mechanics of the game while still absorbing this material. And so I think the approach that we ended up taking in general is that we allow students to dive deeper when they want, right? So we'll present some high-level information, and as they get farther, we sort of dive a little bit deeper, and we always have the option for the students to take that next step and learn more, read more. So that's been an interesting challenge to work through, and the exact sort of pacing of all of that. And I think one other aspect too is again just setting a clear structure for students when it comes to what they're about to experience, what they experience, and then what they've just experienced. So yeah, really setting context up front about what they might find in a particular level, what they should be looking out for, or what they should be sort of trying to discover. Then allow them to sort of play freely. And then after the fact, follow up and make sure that they have absorbed this information, that they are able to apply it critically. And we've also been working on sort of in classroom worksheets and materials that you could use in conjunction with this to really have students interacting and having conversation and doing some real life reading and writing as well.
Yeah, and that's why having our SMEs has been super helpful in helping us establish that content, so it can truly be integrated into the classroom setting.
That's awesome. How about Ludin.io? What? And I'm kind of riffing off one of the questions in our chat from Aaron. Thank you. When you were incorporating your STEM learning objectives into the game, and I know you already started out with some core elements that were already very much lent themselves to the subject, but did you feel you had to make any compromises? Were there any challenges or workarounds that you've had to implement? Like what was it like speaking with subject matter experts and then taking what they said, this would be a perfect learning experience, and how does that get into a game? What was that experience, or what has it been like?
Well, you have actually described the challenge that we have been facing so far. So it's the most challenging, I think, well, at least for me, it's the most challenging, and on the other hand, the most exciting thing to be working with teachers, because since our game is basically driven by teachers and they're telling us what to do on the levels, we have to constantly be in the dialogue. And there be demons there, because they say, yeah, we need this thing to do. Oh no, we can't do that, it will take us another month to implement, but you can do this thing. And they are like, oh, we can. So this is how it works. And it's not easy, because there is a lot of communication, definitely, and there is a lot of tuning to each other, if I might put it this way. But in the end, we're coming to something very interesting, if you ask me. And so the next challenge would be to start showing it to other teachers who are not related to our company, and showing it to actual educators. And because there are no two same classrooms in the world, and all the teachers are working differently, and we're just trying to pave the way for them to apply this version of our game in STEM. But we would very much like to see them actually doing it, so we could build on their feedback and make it even more interesting.
Margarita, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yes, actually, in terms of challenges in the class, I heard like one of the feedback we had, concern, I would say, that actually teachers are afraid to apply games in the class, because from one point of view, it could be just playing instead of studying. But we know that communication skills and engineer thinking are like 21st century skills. Those are superpowers. So the game was initially designed to support NGS standards. That was important for us.
But you're right. This is what our learning material designers keep telling us, that once we let our kids play the game, they're lost to us. So they're trying to give them all the meaningful material before they actually let them to mouses and keyboards. So I guess it's a challenge for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think of one challenge maybe also that we've been working through with our project here is that, well, really, it's that question of how true do you have to be to the material, and how do you know when you're sort of taking it too far into fantasy or into pure game, for example. And, yeah, I think maybe compromise isn't exactly the right word. Maybe it's more of just the right balance. I think in our game, we definitely want to push the fantasy of it. We want the world and the levels to be exciting, but at the same time, we want it to be familiar and really like immerse the players into the justice system. So yeah, I guess what I would say there is that we know that we're taking some liberties in some of the level design or the way that some of these elements are presented, but there's clear moments where we have sort of hard facts, and we're not compromising on the accuracy of anything. But as an example, we'll have salivary glands in the mouth, for example, and we're using those as a hazard in the game. And so, in real life, maybe that wouldn't be all that dangerous, but in the context of the game, I think it sort of fits. It fits well. And again, finding that balance is always tough. So it's a constant balancing act there. But yeah, I think students are smart. Like they
can make those connections from their world to the world of the game, and basically make like see patterns. And I guess like another example is our small intestine is a little smoky and a little foggy, and so it's kind of implying that's like where food is like getting processed, and then we have information that tells you that, and it helps the kids make that connection there from what they've seen and what they understand. Right?
Yeah, we've been trying to focus in on this idea that you would sort of see it and experience it first and discover it sort of naturally, and then we can follow up with, okay, well, yeah, what is it that we've just seen? Here's some detail about exactly how that functions.
That's awesome. And thank you for that. And Ludin, Georgi, and Margarita, I feel like I'm calling you each by your company names. One of the many things that I'm impressed with around what you do and your work is you've really done an amazing job of going beyond the game. So you have podcasts, you are building audience elsewhere, you have been just really putting yourselves out there a lot. Can you please talk about what some of those activities are and how that goes towards supporting your game and your efforts around this initiative?
Margarita?
No, I didn't get the question. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Can you just talk about how what you're doing around like podcasts and your Discord server and what you're doing to spread the word about your game beyond typical means?
Okay, actually, yes, you're right. We are doing a lot. So Georgia personally is responsible for Discord server. So we have a group of players like of our previous game, Wild to Learn Plus. He's receiving a lot of feedback for Learning Factory. In terms of Twitter, we also share this kind of marketing efforts of between like Learning Factory and Ludenio accounts. I myself, as again, I'm responsible for searching for teachers. So it's just combined effort. So in terms of podcast, we have a dedicated team which is called Community Show. Those are two guys. the host of the podcast was, previously responsible at Unity for building the community. So I think we're in the right hands. And we're inviting teachers to also, you could also join us if you want next week to talk about, this experience of Games for Change. How do you feel about that?
I'm totally on board. Are you kidding me? I'm a podcast hobbyist myself. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
I will email you details anyway. So yeah, I think the whole idea behind of everything. So you have to market. You have to put yourself on the market, from every possible channel, and this has to be empathetical marketing, I would say. So that way you connect with right people with good vibes, and you just talk about your game with really in a positive meaning. Those are our kind of efforts we're doing.
Yeah, and I see, John, you're shaking your head. Yes. Did you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, I definitely think that that these projects and these sort of games do have a very positive impact on the world, and I think the more you can sort of share that message, is fantastic. One other sort of aspect here that I think we've been trying to deal with is making it so that the game itself can be used by as many people as possible. So we've been working on getting the game running on mobile as well, being able to get it into as many people's hands as possible, as easily as possible. And I think that will play a big part in, really just making it accessible.
I think that's really important, and I also think it's what I see both of you doing, Luden and Red Star, is you have a long-term vision for this product, and you're adopting what I like to call, which I invented, not really, a franchise mindset, and a multi-platform approach. And also, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with somebody from one of the larger game publishers, and they have player councils now at the design stage for multi-million-dollar console games. When I started in games, players weren't involved until there was a beta, but just knowing how much players are active, and that goes for students in the classroom context or just a regular gamer audience. It's just really important that you both have that kind of franchise mindset. And this is my final question for each of you. If you had to give advice to a developer who was embarking on this process, you have a game, it's almost finished or it's already launched, and you want to adapt it for an impact-driven purpose, an educational purpose, what advice do you have? Because it's very different from starting a game from the beginning where you have educational goals in mind. So if you could just please share with us some advice for the audience, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess one would definitely to lean on a partner or an SME. That has been hugely helpful before we go right in. Just a lot of game making already is a lot of planning, and so before the execution, so planning out those learning objectives and having, in our case, a teacher and education-based game designer has been integral in making sure we can work efficiently as we get started. And I think every game designer would also tell you this, play testing this is probably going to be a little bit more in the middle, but Margaret, to what you said about having players in at the beginning, and play testing from the get-go. And that's actually something we did with Get a Grip Chip. I think we took it out for play testing 3 days after something was built and ready to go as well. So players are a hugely integral part of the game making process.
Yeah, I think, as far as advice goes as well, as much as you can, directly integrating the game's mechanics into the content, essentially, or into the learning objectives, the better, right? Asking players or learners to apply the knowledge that they've gained in a way that affects the game or the game's mechanics, I think makes it that much stronger and sort of makes it feel like a more cohesive whole. And it's really asking them to play with the STEM content. I guess one other piece that we've been discussing is really just the visual approach as well. I think for us, we, again, work very visually a lot of the time. And so really having a focus on exactly what the experience is going to be like when someone actually sits down in a classroom or at home and is playing this. What are they going to be seeing? What are they going to be hearing? Is the teacher going to be speaking? So really thinking about that sort of cohesive whole and the context in which they're going to see this.
In terms of advice, I would say be as close as possible to your target audience. And bear in mind that your target audience is actually 4 groups of people, like teachers, schools, children, and parents. And you have to bring value to all of them. And, additionally, have a dedicated person to talk to organizations. That's important because you have certain people who are involved in development, others who talk.
Georgi, did you want to?
I'd say that perhaps there is, well, maybe that doesn't go for all of the games out there, but it goes for most, that there is something to learn from maybe every other game or most of the games as well. And I've seen people applying your typical games from stores to studying, teaching English, or maybe, and teaching programming with games is not even in the news anymore. So what I would say is, as I mentioned before, focus on fun, make sure that you're engaging your players, and then look for something that could be educational about your game. And if you want to adapt it to be educational and applied in classes, just try building up on it. That's what we're doing, at least.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, for sharing that perspective. We are out of time, and I just want to say to all of you, I've learned so much just working with you, and I'm so inspired by what you're doing. I really want to thank the audience also for your great questions and for your chat comments. Please reach out to these incredibly talented developers, founders, entrepreneurs, game developers. They want to hear from you, and they're inspiring. And that's it. I just look forward to continuing the conversation and seeing all the great stuff that you're going to keep making. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hosting this event.
Thanks so much.
And for getting
having us.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Audience. Bye.
Thanks.